Well, hello, everyone. Good morning for those that are in those time zones, or good afternoon if you're on the East Coast. So welcome to the information session about the Alaska Fellows Program. I'm Tina Buxbaum, and I'm the Executive Director of the Alaska Fellows Program. So I'm your main point of contact for the entire program and run all 4 sites. And I have a presentation I'm going to share. So let me pull that up really quick. Can everyone see my slides? Pipe up. Oh, great. Perfect. Never quite know with Google Slides whether it works or not. So anyway, let's get started. So the Alaska Fellows Program, a little bit of background. It was started in 2014 by the gentleman on the left, Jonathan Crease Tompkins. And at that time, he was a student at Yale, and he was from Sitka originally. And he really realized that there were all these people that he was going to school with at Yale that really wanted to come to Alaska, and they wanted to make these meaningful contributions. And at the same time, there were all these nonprofit and public sector organizations in his hometown of Sitka that could really benefit from the energy and the capacity and the skills of these people that he was going to school with. So he started by bringing all of his friends back to Sitka to work in the summer, and then the program has really grown from there. It eventually transitioned from a summer program to a fall to spring program, and has expanded from Sitka into Juneau, Anchorage, and Fairbanks. So it's in 4 communities at this point. Kind of the basics of the program, just so that you are all on the same page. It's intended for early career professionals. So generally fellows are straight out of their undergrad to a couple years out. We have had some fellows that have their master's or are working on their PhD, but generally everyone's in that early career, early professional stage of life. And then also, fellows need to really be interested in the idea of living communally with other people that are going through the program. So as part of the program, there's professional mentorship at each host organization. You live together with other fellows that are going through the program at the same time, but come from vastly different backgrounds. And we really support and encourage fellows to make broader and more meaningful connections into your community at large. And as I mentioned, it's in Anchorage, Juneau, Fairbanks, and Sitka. And then the program generally runs September through May. And I say generally because unfortunately in Juneau, because of our housing situations, it's October through April. So the Juneau program is 2 months shorter. But someday we hope to align it, but housing is incredibly difficult to come by in Juneau. So the locations, they kind of run the full breadth of Alaska, from down in the southeast, which is temperate rainforest. So think Vancouver, Seattle, rain, big trees, big mountains, not as much snow, to Anchorage, which is our city site. So 400,000 people. It's coastal, think big snowstorms, also big mountains. And then Fairbanks in the interior, which is the newest site. And I always describe Fairbanks as what people think of when they think of Alaska, northern lights, dark in the winter, snow on the ground all winter long, sun all summer long. And I'll go into a little more detail on each of them. But as you can see, it's a pretty broad geography. So we'll start with Fairbanks. That's actually where I'm located, and it is the newest site in the program. It's in its 2nd year this year. So next year will be the 3rd year in Fairbanks. And it's a boreal ecosystem, so very continental. It's in the middle of the state. It's big temperature swings. Snow comes in October, stays until April. Moose, trees, all of that. There's 2 program houses in Fairbanks. They're at the Cold Climate Housing Research Center Sustainable Village. They're experimental houses built on permafrost. There's 4 bedrooms in each house, and they're right across just a little sidewalk from each other. So as part of the program, no one shares a bedroom. So in every housing situation, you have your own bedroom. And there's also 2 program cars in Fairbanks. Anchorage. So Anchorage is the city site. Like I said, 400,000 people. All the amenities that you can think of in a city. And it's the start of the Iditarod, which is everyone will be watching this Saturday. Very coastal, big mountains. There's 2 program houses right now in Anchorage, and this year we'll be expanding to a 3rd. I haven't found the 3rd yet, but we will have a 3rd program house in Anchorage this year. These first 2, 15th Ave and Virginia Court, they're right around the corner from each other by Westchester Lagoon. There's 2 program vehicles in Anchorage as well. And yeah, everyone has their own bedroom. They're really nice houses. And they're all generally within walking distance of the host organizations, though there are cars for fellows to share. Juneau is the start of the coastal temperate rainforest sites. It's the state capital. And so Juneau has a very cyclical population. Tourism is a huge component in the summer. So in the summer into early October, there's cruise ship after cruise ship through, and the town is just hopping with tourists. And then in the fall, it settles down for a little bit. And then in January, because it's the state capital, legislative session starts, and then it's hopping again with all the legislators and the staffers and all of the support structure that comes with a state government. And as you can see, it's kind of tucked right between the ocean and big mountains. Again, really dramatic landscape and lots of rain. In Juneau, there are 2 apartments. They each have 3 bedrooms, so there'll be 6 fellows total in Juneau. And they're tucked right downtown within walking distance of all of the host organizations and all the amenities that you could want. And then Sitka, the original program site, is our smallest community. Sitka is about 8,000 people. Again, very coastal, tucked right in against the mountains and the ocean. I always joke that if you ran a marathon in Sitka, you would have to double over, because I think there's only about 20 miles of paved roads in all of Sitka. So think very small town feel. Everyone gets to know you. Everyone knows the fellows program. You definitely cannot go unnoticed in Sitka. So it's a very fun community. And then all of the fellows live in one house in Sitka. It's a 7-bedroom family home. It's quirky. It's had fellows in there for a very long time. So there's lots of history, artwork from past fellows up on the walls. Yeah, it's a very fun house. Oh, and I should mention Juneau, because everything's within walking distance, there's no program cars, and Sitka's the same thing. The entire town is a walking community. There are program bikes at the house, but there are no program cars in Sitka. So kind of now that you know where everything's at, a little bit of what is involved in the program and what's the support structure. There's opening and closing all site convenings where I bring all 4 program sites together. The opening convening is in Fairbanks in September. So I bring everyone together. We talk about program intentions and get to know each other, and really, like kick off the entire experience. There's also a closing convening where I bring everyone to Juneau in April, where again, you're able to kind of, reflect on your experience, have a fun get together with everybody at the end. And the Juneau one is always timed around Folk Fest. So you're also able to have fun in Juneau. There's also site-specific opening and closing retreats that happen right when you first get to your program site. And those are a chance for your smaller site-specific cohort to get to know each other and to have those initial conversations that really kickstart the idea of communal living. So, how are we going to share food and chores? We also use that time to have the conversation around COVID restrictions and how your cohort wants to deal with COVID. And the same thing, there's site-specific closing retreats where, it's largely just a last chance for your cohort to have one more fun adventure together and to kind of reflect on your experience. Each site has site coordinators. They're generally prior fellows that have gone through the program in the years past. And they're there to really help you get integrated into the community. So they're people that have been in the community for a while. They're well connected. If you want to join the volunteer firefighter, a group, then they can help you connect with that. Or if you want to play basketball, or if you want to take an art class, they're there as your first touch point into the community. They're also there to help with any kind of triage issues. So, you're sick and you need someone to drive you to, to the doctor, or, like the car gets a flat tire or different things like that. So they're there as kind of that first point of contact and your first friend in the community. Also, because the program has been going for almost a decade now, there's a pretty broad network of alumni across all of the different sites and across Alaska. And then there's also a much broader friends and family of the program. So all the different community members that are really engaged in the program. And then throughout the year, as different events pop up, we really help support fellows to be engaged in different community events, whether it's going to an Iditarod viewing party or participating in, like they've participated in spelling bees or whatever kind of activity really works for you and your cohort. So this is an important slide. I really want anyone that applies to the program to think deeply. There's two pillars. There's the work and professional mentor component with your host organization, but then there's also the communal living and the idea of living with others from vastly different backgrounds, but who are also going through the experience together. And so you have to really take both parts as part of the whole. So I really want you to think intentionally about whether you're interested in living in these communities with others. And we really encourage fellows to find ways to create those bonds and to build that structure, whether it's cooking family dinners together weekly or having one-on-one friend dates, fellows write newsletters together, or whatever other tradition works for you. We've had fellows that do radio programs together or have done a whole bunch of crafts and sell their stuff at craft fairs. But whatever works for your cohort, we really encourage this as a big part of the program. And as I mentioned a little bit when talking about the site coordinators, we don't want you just to go to work and then hang out at your house. So we do a lot of work to help fellows get connected into their broader communities, taking art classes, doing radio programs, having dinner with the other volunteer organizations in the state, the AmeriCorps fellows and the Jesuit Volunteer Corps folks. So we really want you to get out into your communities and make those deeper connections and experience Alaska to its fullest. Just a little bit of program impact so far. So we do have alumni from 7 different countries, 35 states. So I need to check off my last few states. And then about half of the alumni stay in the state for at least a year post-fellowship. And that's a little bit fuzzy because we definitely have alumni that leave the state to go to med school or grad school and then come back. But we only really have good tracking for the year after. So. So nitty-gritty details, what you're agreeing to and what you're going to receive. So housing and utilities are provided, so you don't have to worry about rent or internet or any of that. You're also given an $1,150 a month living stipend, plus a relocation stipend for getting up here. The stipends are taxable fellowships, so we do not withhold taxes. So that's something that fellows need to remember is come tax time, they're going to have to figure out their tax situation, but it's treated kind of like a scholarship. And then as part of the program, you receive 10 days of time off, and any of the time that I pull you out for retreats and convenings and stuff like that don't count as against your time off. That's part of that. Your hosts know that you're mine for those days, and it doesn't count against your fun time. But as part of it, you agree to work at your host organizations for about 40 hours a week. It's required that you attend all the retreats, and that encouraged and really promoted to contribute to your community and make those connections. And then also fellows are required to be vaccinated for COVID. And we do have those conversations in the beginning around how your house and your cohort want to deal with COVID. So the application process, applications are live right now. Review will start March 20th. All the positions, well, I shouldn't say all. There's 4 positions that I don't have listed on the website yet because the hosts are slow getting me their position descriptions, but the majority of the positions should all be up on this website. And there's a host of questions that are around communal living that are really to make sure that you've thought about that part. And then there's places for you to upload all the different documents that the host asks for. So the way the process works is you upload all those documents. I do a first scan through around Communal Living, and then anyone, that's generally a pretty easy scan. And then I send all of the documents to the host organizations. They review all your documents. They decide who they want to interview. They conduct the interviews and they make the final selection. Because I really want the hosts to have the fellows that they're interested in, and the fellows get to apply to the hosts that they're interested in. I don't do any matchmaking. I want to make sure both sides are happy with who they're connected with. And so the biggest thing I really recommend and stress is that read each position description that you're interested in very carefully, because hosts will ask for different documents. So some of them will ask for a writing sample, or some of them will ask for a PowerPoint example, or things like that. And they often use that for a screening process. So if they've asked for something different than the norm and you didn't submit it, oftentimes you won't get advanced to their next level. So do read each position description really carefully. My other bit of advice is you're able to submit multiple cover letters. And I would say that fellow or applicants that write tailored cover letters for the positions they're really interested in, as opposed to a big, broad, I want to be a fellow anywhere cover letter. The tailored cover letters do better with the host organizations. So for those positions that you're super interested in, I do recommend writing a targeted cover letter for that host organization. Yeah, and at that's kind of like the nitty-gritty of it all. I will stop sharing, and you guys should be able to unmute yourself so you can go ahead and ask any questions, or if you have any comments or anything that you're curious about. You have me for the next however long, and so you might as well pick my brain for any questions that you have. And I can put the website in here too.
Hi, Tina, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great, I'll start us off. My question is kind of living situation stuff. If I fly up to Alaska and I'm bringing the clothes on my back and what other luggage I can carry, do I need to worry about furniture, desk, chairs, bed, lights in the houses, or are those things provided?
Those things are all provided. The one thing we do, so the houses are fully furnished. That's all on us. You don't need any kitchen stuff, anything like that. You do need a sleeping bag and a sleeping pad. So those are two things that we require folks to either bring with them or somehow acquire, because we use them during the opening and closing convenings and retreats. The other things that fellows often bring is if you have a blanket that you're really attached to, or you really like, certain sheets or whatever. We do have some of those at the different houses, but often people want their own stuff. Those type of things people have kind of an attachment to. But in general, the houses are fully furnished with couches and beds and dishes and all of that stuff.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, I have an additional question. So in regards to the cover letter, so there is one for the application itself, and then we're allowed to submit individual ones to each position of interest. Is that correct?
Yes. So the way the Google form works is you can upload multiple documents. So just make sure that, if you have a cover letter that's specific to like Mount Edgecombe High School, you somehow have it noted in the file title, and then I will make sure that gets to that host organization. So.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And the same thing too. Oh, I was going to add the same thing too. If you're applying to multiple different positions and you have references that say, you have a set of references that really can speak to your communication work, but you're also applying to a position that's like, working with high schools or working with high school students in Mount Edgecombe, and you have different references that can speak to your ability on that side, feel free to upload more than one set of references as well. But the same thing, just note in the file title, where they should go. That makes sense.
Yeah, I had a question about the service sites, and I was wondering if how often people stay at their service sites afterwards, or if like the service sites will hire them after they've worked there for in the fellowship.
Yeah, great question. I would say probably 20 to 30% of fellows end up staying with their host organization. And I would say if it's a really good match between the host organization and the fellow, the host usually finds a way to keep their fellow. And it's probably not a higher number than that, because a lot of fellows, we have a lot of fellows that want to do something completely different for the summer. So, say you were working with, the women's shelter in Sitka for the whole year, and then you decided in the summer you're going to go guide on a glacier. So there's a little bit of fluidity there where, there's all sorts of other opportunities that come up that people jump on. And also, sometimes people are like, oh, I just spent this year down in Sitka. Now I really want to go see what Fairbanks is like. So they'll try to find a position in Fairbanks. As part of the program in January and February, I run a bunch of different career panels and summer job panels for the fellows, because we really, it's a 9-month fellowship, but we really want you to use it to build your network within the state and figure out your next steps and what your long-term plans are. So we run a bunch of programming throughout the latter half of the year to help you make all those connections and help you figure out what you want to do next. And, if you email me and you're interested in field work, I use my whole connection network and all the alumni and the other connections that the program have to help you figure out that. So it's I would say, we use this as a big jumping off point to staying in the state and figuring out what you want to do next. If that makes sense.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, so I had a question regarding health insurance. And sorry, first, thank you so much for this presentation. It was very informational. And so I think I read on the website that the program wouldn't be supplying health insurance, but so if people don't have like a private health insurance option, they can use Alaska Medicaid, correct?
Yes, and I need yes, that is correct. So if you're not covered under your parents still, or you don't have your own, fellows have used Medicaid, or they've also bought insurance through Marketplace. I need to update my Medicaid like instruction, because it's a little bit, applying for Medicaid in each state has its own little tricky quirks and stuff like that. But yes, you are able to apply through Medicaid through Alaska if you don't have insurance in another manner.
Okay, thank you. And you would suggest, I don't know like the timeline for Alaska Medicaid or anything. So is that something you would do after you've committed to the program, hypothetically?
Yes, and I think so like I have to look. I'm not sure if you have to be physically in the state to apply, or if it's something like, say, you apply to the program, you get accepted, then you can start the application process. I'm not 100% sure, and that's one of the things that I have to update. So yeah.
Sure, thank you. And actually another question I had was regarding just another healthcare related thing. So I think I also read that there's like short-term mental health counseling, but I was wondering whether it's for mental health counseling or just something like longer, like a doctor or anything. If you do have health insurance, are you able to get something longer term?
Yes, so we offer subsidized mental health care, which is in, so a lot of Alaska, it tends to be a big like change coming here, and the dark in the winter and different things like that. So we subsidize the first 4 visits with a mental health care provider, with the intention that after it's a bridge period where you're figuring out long-term mental health care, if that's the path you want to go, or it's more of a short term, like you just need a small amount of support. But we do, the provider that we work with, he's very, very good about helping fellows navigate the insurance world and figure out if they do need long-term health care and mental health care, like how to transition into that role. So.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. And I should also mention a little segue. I didn't mention the timeline. So application review will start March 20th. And the intention is that the hosts review applications at the end of March, early April, are doing interviews in April. So all of you who are graduating in May will have an idea of what you're doing by the time you graduate. I don't like getting into the summer because it just gets busy and crazy and people are doing fun adventures and you guys all want to know what you're doing this fall. So ideally the timeline is that interviews will be happening in late March, early April, and there'll be a decision before you're all graduating in May. For the positions, like if there's still open positions, they'll stay up on the website and I'll keep like advertising and working through them. But the big first push will be all on March 20th to send all the materials to the host organizations.
Yeah, I have another quick question. In the past, have DACA recipients been able to apply, or does it vary on the position available in terms of their preferences for like citizenship?
Yep. So there's no citizenship requirement as long as you're able to work in the US. So we have, we don't have the capacity to apply for standalone visas for folks, but we've definitely worked with, folks that are on student visas, that are on OPT type of extensions on their visa, or if you have green cards, or if you have other documentation that allows you to work in the US still. We just can't go straight from the scratch, for applying for a visa for folks.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I put my email in the chat, so please feel free to shoot me an email if you come up with more questions later or anything like that. I'm quite happy to chat via email, or I can hop on Zoom or a phone call or whatever. So I'm here as a resource.
I have another question. So I was wondering if you had any input or advice around choosing a site, because I think I saw in the application that you rank 2 of them, if I'm correct. So would you recommend, I don't like, I guess it depends on preference, but just prioritizing what specific host organization you'd prefer working with, or the housing or the weather? Yeah, I was just wondering some of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, great question. So you are able to check more than 2. So you can definitely pick more than just your top 2. And I have folks write down their top 2 just so I kind of get a guess of where, where the interest really is. And so as far as choosing different sites, there's multiple factors. Fairbanks, I would say the hardest thing for folks in Fairbanks is that it's dark in the winter. So really, I think that's when people think of moving to Alaska and things like that, they really think of the cold and the snow and like, how is that going to impact them? But what really impacts people is the light. So, really look at how much daylight it is and how you like to interact and get out in the world. Juneau and Sitka, it rains and it's going to be rainy a lot of the time. So if you don't like to get rained on and you don't like to be wet, like those might not be the best locations for you. Sitka is a very small town, where Juneau's it's got a much more active nightlife and bar scene, where Sitka doesn't. It's 8,000 people, so it's much smaller. Anchorage is a city, so if you don't like lots of people and you don't like cars and you don't like the hustle bustle of the city, like Anchorage might not be for you. But again, then Anchorage doesn't get a lot of rain. Anchorage gets big snowstorms, but it's not nearly as rainy or as dark as some of the other sites. So, you can do a lot of Googling and kind of looking at the different environments where you're at and see what you like, and what you're interested in experiencing, because they're all very different from what you've probably experienced before. As far as the host organizations, there should be websites for each host organization. So I really encourage you, click on their website. You know, there's contacts for each host organization within the position description. So if if there's a position or a host org that you're really interested in, or you want to learn more about, jot that person an email and ask them. They're all very, very helpful and willing to answer questions. So yeah, I would say, it takes a little bit of homework and a little on your end as far as looking at the communities and looking at the host organizations, but I do recommend putting in a little bit of legwork to learn about everybody. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
The other thing, when you're looking at the different communities too, Anchorage and Fairbanks are on the road system, so you can drive to other locations from those communities. You could theoretically, if you wanted to bring a car up, you could drive your car up from the lower 48. Sitka and Juneau are only accessible by plane or by boat. So getting in and out of those communities is a lot more challenging. So you can't drive out of Juneau. You can put your car on a ferry and ship it out, but you can't drive out. So kind of also take that into consideration as far as how you like to get around. If you like to do long road trips, Sitka and Juneau might not be the communities for you, where Anchorage and Fairbanks, there's hundreds and hundreds of miles of road that you can drive off into the wilderness, or you can go visit another community or things like that. So.
Hi, Tina. I had a question.
Go for it.
I was wondering, just hearing you talk about the different sites and the application process, I was curious what the volume of applicants look like, and maybe if you didn't match with someone, if there were leftover slots, how you approached maybe like introducing other sites to people.
Yeah, for sure. Great question. Usually I get about 100 applicants, or 100 folks that go all the way through filling all the application out. There's always people that start it and don't do all of it. And that was based on last year's numbers. And as far as like if you don't match and stuff like that, I always ask the host after they've interviewed people if they had really strong candidates that they interviewed but didn't select. And then those folks I usually reach out to and try to connect you with other positions. Or if you I kind of keep track of where people are ranking with the different hosts that they interview with, and I try to make sure and encourage high ranking fellows or applicants that are with one host that didn't get picked to find a different spot. So there's a little bit of wiggle room that way. Also, if there's open positions and somebody like you were really interested in it or stuff like that, I do a little bit of outreach and wiggle room afterwards. So if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah. Any other questions? And thank you all for joining on your Tuesday morning / afternoon. So. Well, like I said, if you have any further questions, please email me. You should be able to find all my information on the website as well. Look through the position descriptions. If you have any questions about the hosts or the positions, I'm also quite happy to answer those or help connect you. And for most of our hosts are returning hosts. So there's also, if you wanted to talk to an alumni that has been at that host organization before, just shoot me an email and I'm happy to connect you with an alum that can speak to the position way better than I can, as they've been at that host organization and been in those roles. Well, great. If no one has any more questions, I'll let you guys get back to the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much,
Thank
Tina.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.